For 80 years, the world has searched for the eighth wonder, the legendary Amber Room stolen by the Nazis. It was believed destroyed forever. But a recent expedition to the bottom of the Baltic Sea has just changed history. A robot descended into the sealed cargo hold of a forgotten shipwreck, and what its camera captured in the darkness defies all logic. Are those boxes full of treasure, or is it a death trap? Before opening the hatch, subscribe, activate the bell, and give a like to join the search. The Baltic Sea is a cold graveyard. Its waters, low in salinity and frigid, act as a natural preservative, a dark formaldehyde that maintains history in an almost perfect state of suspension. For decades, fishermen and navies have sailed over its gray waves, unaware that beneath the keel lie the ghosts of the largest naval evacuation in human history, Operation Hannibal. In the autumn of 2020, the surface of the Baltic, off the coast of Poland, was broken by a team of technical divers from the Baltictech group. They were not looking for fish. They were looking for a needle in a haystack of rusty steel. Their target was the wreck of the SS Karlsruhe, a cargo steamer sunk by Soviet planes in the final agonies of World War II in 1945. The premise of this expedition was almost cinematic. It was believed that this ship, on its last desperate voyage from Königsberg, today's Kaliningrad, westward, carried in its belly more than just refugees and wounded soldiers. It carried heavy cargo. When the team deployed a remotely operated vehicle, ROV, and a high-definition camera descended into the blackness. At 88 meters deep, the tension on the surface was palpable. The robot illuminated the smashed hull. It found a breach, an entrance toward the ship's entrails. Penetrating a cargo chamber that had remained sealed by mud and time for 75 years, the light of the spotlights revealed an image that defied probability. What they saw inside was impossible, not because it was supernatural, but because logic dictated it should have been destroyed, looted, or disintegrated. There, stacked in the silence, were boxes. Military boxes, sealed, protected by combat vehicles. And the shape, size, and context of those boxes pointed to only one thing. The eighth wonder of the world, the legendary Amber Room, disappeared from the face of the earth almost a century ago. To understand why simple wooden boxes underwater can quicken the pulse of the international community, we must understand what is, or is believed to be, inside them. The Amber Room was not a simple room. It was materialized obsession. Conceived in the early 18th century, it was a gift from King Frederick William I of Prussia to Tsar Peter the Great of Russia in 1716, a diplomatic gesture intended to cement an alliance against Sweden. But the gift exceeded all expectations. It was a 6-ton puzzle of pure amber. Amber, that fossilized resin that traps the light of the sun from millions of years ago, is notoriously difficult to work with. It is fragile, brittle. Yet, Prussian and Russian artisans managed to create entire panels, intricate mosaics, mirror frames, and skirting boards, all made of Baltic gold. When finally installed in the Catherine Palace in Tsarskoye Selo, near St. Petersburg, the room glowed with a light of its own. It was said that entering it was like being inside a living jewel. Candles reflected in the golden mirrors, and the warm resin created an atmosphere that intoxicated the senses. Its current value is estimated, according to reports like those from Clarin, at about $180 million, although some experts suggest its cultural value is incalculable, exceeding $500 million on the art black market. It is not just money. It is the symbol of Russian imperial power and the pinnacle of Baroque craftsmanship. And, like all beautiful things in European history, it was destined to be coveted by war. The impossibility of finding the chamber today lies in the efficiency with which it disappeared. In 1941, Operation Barbarossa unleashed the Nazi war machine on the Soviet Union. The curators of the Catherine Palace, knowing the Germans were coming, desperately tried to hide the amber room. It was too fragile to dismantle quickly. In a pathetic but heroic attempt, they covered the amber panels with ordinary wallpaper and gauze, hoping the Nazis would not notice the shine underneath. It was in vain. Wehrmacht soldiers knew exactly what to look for. Within 36 hours, German experts dismantled the room panel by panel, packed the tons of amber into 27 boxes, and shipped them to Königsberg in East Prussia. There, the room was reassembled in the city castle. It was briefly displayed as a trophy of war, proof of German cultural superiority, ironically, by repatriating a work originally made in Prussia. But as the war turned against Germany, the chamber's fate darkened. By late 1944, with the Red Army advancing thirsty for revenge and British RAF bombers reducing Königsberg to ashes, the order was given to dismantle the room again and pack it in boxes. And this is where history breaks. The trail goes cold in 1945. Some say it burned in the castle, others that it was buried in mines, and a persistent theory claimed it was loaded onto a ship. Let's return to the Baltic. April 1945. Germany collapses. Chaos reigns in the ports of East Prussia. Thousands of civilians and soldiers try to flee the Soviet advance. Operation Hannibal, the largest maritime evacuation in history, is launched. The SS Karlsruhe was an old steamer built in 1905. It was not a warship, but it was recruited for the task. It departed from Pillau, Königsberg's port, on April 12, 1945. Its cargo manifest was vague but crucial. It carried 1,083 refugees, 360 tons of return cargo, a military euphemism for equipment and looted goods, and military vehicles. The voyage was short. The next morning, Soviet planes detected the slow steamer. They launched torpedoes and bombs. The Karlsruhe broke apart and sank in a matter of minutes, taking almost all its passengers and its mysterious cargo to the bottom of the sea with it. For 75 years, the ship rested in silence. The exact location was lost. Until the Baltictech team, analyzing historical files and using side-scan sonars, located an anomaly on the seabed north of the Polish city of Ustka. The premise of our essay, "They lowered a camera into a sealed chamber," describes the climax of the Baltictech expedition. Diving to 88 meters is not a simple task. It requires special gas mixtures, trimix, long decompression times, and nerves of steel. But for the first inspection, robots were used. The ROV descended along the guide cable, fighting the dark currents. Upon reaching the wreck, researchers noted that the ship was remarkably intact in its general structure, despite the battle damage. It rested on its keel. This was vital. It meant the cargo in the holds had not spilled over the seabed, but remained contained within the hull. The robot found a crack in the deck, or a hatch opened by corrosion. It slipped inside. The sealed chamber was the cargo hold. What the camera transmitted to the monitors on the surface made the archaeologists' hearts pound. What did they see? They did not see shining gold. As water absorbs warm colors, they saw shapes. First, military vehicles, cars, motorcycles. This confirmed that the ship carried priority military cargo, not just civilian refugees. If it had been only civilians, there would be scattered suitcases and household goods. The presence of military vehicles indicated that the Wehrmacht was protecting something valuable in that hold. But then, the camera turned. There, among the remains of corroded metal and sediment, were boxes. Wooden boxes with metal fittings stacked in an unsettling order. The vision was impossible for several reasons. The preservation. The wood, in theory, should have rotted or been devoured by the naval worm, Teredo navalis. However, the Baltic is an anoxic sea in its depths and has low salinity. It acts as a time capsule. The boxes appeared structurally solid. The context: the boxes were not standard ammunition containers. They were large, the right size to contain wall panels, and they were situated in the most protected part of the ship, guarded, so to speak, by the war machinery surrounding them. The coincidence: the Karlsruhe was the last ship to leave Königsberg with heavy cargo before the city fell completely. If the amber room left by sea, it had to be on this ship. Seeing those boxes there was seeing the physical confirmation of a theory that many historians had dismissed as fantasy. The yarn's impossibility resided in the legend becoming tangible. For decades, the chamber was sought in ghost trains in Poland, in flooded mines in Germany, in secret basements in Denmark. No one really expected to find it simply there, in a known ship's hold, waiting to be found. Here arises the scientific question that accompanies the visual astonishment. If those boxes contain the amber room, what is left of it? Amber is fossilized resin. It is essentially organic stone. It is water-resistant. In fact, amber is often found on Baltic beaches, washed up by the waves. Chemically, the main material of the room could have perfectly survived 75 years of immersion. It does not dissolve in salt water. However, the chamber was not just amber. It was support wood, gold leaf, quicksilver mirrors, and 18th-century glues. It is likely that the support structure has disintegrated or deformed. If those boxes were opened, we might find a puzzle of millions of pieces, loose amber fragments mixed with mud. But even in that state, the finding would be impossibly valuable. Restoring the original chamber, even partially, would be the greatest achievement of modern conservation. It would be recovering the lost soul of Russian Baroque art. We find ourselves floating on the threshold of history, right in front of that hatch that has remained sealed since 1945. The tension down here is crushing. If this mystery about the lost treasure of the Tsars has you hooked and you want us to continue descending into the unknown, this is the exact moment to like the video. Your support is the oxygen of this channel. Did you do it already? Perfect. Now, hold your breath, because what the camera is about to reveal inside those boxes could rewrite the end of the war. The vision of those boxes through the robot's camera also awakened old ghosts. The Amber Room has a reputation for being cursed. Many of those who have searched for it have died in strange circumstances or suffered financial misfortunes. The general who ordered its theft was executed. The German curator who guarded it in Königsberg, Alfred Rode, died mysteriously alongside his wife just after the Soviets entered the city, taking the secret to the grave, or perhaps taking the knowledge that he had loaded it onto the Karlsruhe. Looking inside that sealed hold underwater is looking into the eyes of that curse. It is a place of death. The Karlsruhe is a war grave. Hundreds of people died in that shipwreck. Touching those boxes poses a monumental ethical dilemma. Is it archaeology, or is it grave robbing? The UNESCO Convention protects underwater heritage, but also respects sites where human remains are present. The impossibility of recovering the treasure is not technical. We have the technology to lift the boxes. It is moral and diplomatic. If the inspection confirms the chamber is there, a legal storm will be unleashed that will make the Titanic shipwreck look like child's play. Russia will claim ownership. It was stolen from their imperial palace. It is their national heritage. Germany could have legal arguments about the ship, German flag, although under the laws of war, booty, and Nazi restitution, its position is weak. Poland has territorial jurisdiction. The ship is in its waters, in its exclusive economic zone. According to Polish law, what is found on its seabed belongs to the Polish state. The treasure hunters. Although Baltictech is a serious research group, confirmation of a $500 million treasure would attract modern pirates and clandestine operations. The image of the boxes on the monitor is not just an archaeological find. It is the first shot of a three-way diplomatic battle. The human mind seeks patterns. We see boxes and we think treasure. But in 1945, Germany was retreating. Those boxes could contain tank spare parts, Gestapo files, industrial machinery, or simply ammunition. However, the size and shape of the containers described by the divers, large boxes, unusual for standard ammunition, and their priority location suggest it was not ordinary cargo. Furthermore, the testimony of saboteurs and stevedores of the time mentioned heavy boxes being loaded under armed guard onto the Karlsruhe. The impossibility persists. Even if it is not the Amber Room, what was so valuable to the Third Reich as to occupy vital space on a condemned refugee ship? It could be Reichsbank gold, or works of art from other museums looted from Ukraine and Russia. Anything in those boxes changes the history of what we knew about the final days of the war. At this moment, the Amber Room at the bottom of the Baltic exists in a quantum state, like Schrödinger's cat. As long as the boxes remain closed under 88 meters of water, they are simultaneously the eighth wonder of the world and a pile of rotten wood with military trash. The robot's camera gave us the impossible image, the intact possibility. It gave us hope. For 75 years, the world assumed the chamber had been destroyed by fire, the most logical explanation after the bombing of Königsberg. Seeing a viable escape route, materialized in the hold of a sunken ship, resurrects the story. It forces us to rewrite the end of the book. It no longer ends with, "and it burned in the castle." Now it ends with an ellipsis at the bottom of the sea. Suppose the sealed chamber is decided to be opened. The logistics are a nightmare. The Karlsruhe is an old and fragile ship. Trying to cut the hull could cause a structural collapse that crushes the boxes. The extraction would have to be surgical. Divers would have to enter the hold, clear tons of sediment, which could contain unexploded ordnance, secure the boxes with lifting nets, and slowly raise them to prevent depressurization or temperature change from damaging the contents. And once on the surface, contact with air could be fatal to the contents if not treated immediately. Wood, soaked for 80 years, falls apart when drying. The amber could fracture from thermal shock. A floating laboratory ready to receive the cargo would be needed. There is a romantic argument for leaving the boxes where they are. The Amber Room is more powerful as a legend than as a reality. As a myth, it is perfect. It is the ultimate symbol of beauty lost to war, a reminder of human barbarity. If we pull out the boxes and only find dust, the legend dies. If we find the room smashed, the magic is broken. But as long as it remains down there in the darkness, seen only by the electronic eye of a robot, it remains impossibly beautiful. However, human curiosity is insatiable. The Baltictech expedition has opened a door that cannot be closed again. They have seen what is inside. They have seen the shapes. The scientific community and the governments involved will not be able to resist the temptation to know the truth. The premise that they saw something impossible is correct in the deepest sense. They saw the past frozen. In a world where everything is mapped by satellites and where secrets last seconds on the internet, I want to read your verdict in the comments. If this finding left you breathless, share the video, leave your like, and subscribe for our next immersion into forbidden history.